Okay, let's talk about progesterone and HRT and different manufacturers and how they can make you feel really different, even though they shouldn't. If you have ever felt like your hormone replacement therapy, your HRT, wasn't working the way it used to be, or you took a different kind or got a different refill from a different pharmacy, and all of a sudden you felt really off and different, and everybody was kind of saying it's in your head, but you knew it wasn't, this video is for you. So I want to share how I recently discovered that the manufacturer of the progesterone pill that I was taking made a huge difference in how I was feeling. And I had no idea that this was even a thing. I remember when I was a lot younger, I think there was one time in my life where I had to have a different manufacturer because the one that I was using wasn't working, but I had forgotten about that and I just didn't make the connection. And so today I want to share my experience with the different progesterone brands, or I should say manufacturers, because really they're generic, and what I've learned from talking to other women, what I've learned from doing some research, and kind of what you need to watch out for so that you can make sure that you're getting the most from your HRT and your medications and you don't have issues like I did. And of course, I have to preface this always by saying that I am not a doctor. I have zero medical credentials at all. I do think I'm a pretty knowledgeable person when it comes to medical stuff and pretty knowledgeable when it comes to HRT because I had to be. I didn't really have a choice with that. But this is not medical advice. I'm not a medical professional. This is just for fun and discussion and just to talk about things because nobody talks about this stuff, or not enough people talk about this stuff. So that's really just what I want to talk about today. And if you see me looking to the side a little bit, it's just because since I have started menopause or been on this menopause journey, I am 2 years postmenopausal. It is very hard for me to remember everything that I want to say. And so I just have a few bulleted things written out so that I can remember everything that I want to talk to you guys about. And so that's where we're at. Let's have a little discussion about progesterone. My name is Amanda Santos. I am a digital marketer. I am a mom of 3, 2 teenagers and 1 out the house. And I've got cats and dogs and all kinds of stuff. And I'm also postmenopausal. I've been postmenopausal now for, 2.5 years, I think. 2.5 years. And I would say that my perimenopause symptoms probably started a good 4 to 5 years before that. I just didn't know it. Looking back on it now, I know it. So we'll talk about symptoms and all that stuff another time. Also, I would love to hear from you guys what you would like me to talk about, what you're experiencing, what is going on in your life when it comes to perimenopause and menopause, and I will talk about it. And let's just have a conversation so that we can kind of spread the word and hopefully reach more women so that more women can get the help that they need, whatever that help means to them. So here is exactly kind of what happened to me. I started taking HRT probably about, I think I'm at the 3-year mark. And it was life-changing for me because before I started, when I took the blood test, I literally had undetectable levels of progesterone, estrogen, and very low testosterone. Those are our 3 main sex hormones that we all need that are participating in hundreds of, maybe not hundreds, a lot of processes that go on in the body and affect how we feel, how we think, how we move, all of the things, right? And so when all of my hormones were at that really low point, I felt like just awful. I was a shell of a person walking around. I had so many symptoms. I felt terrible mentally, physically, every way imaginable. So when I started on HRT, I started with the estradiol patch, which is a transdermal patch. Transdermal meaning it goes through the skin, and a patch meaning it's just like a little patch. It's, I don't know, about that size maybe, a little rectangle, and goes on your glutes. And that is where I go. And with my brand, it gets changed twice a week. So somewhere around there, I'm changed those out. So I started on the estradiol patch, and I also started on progesterone. The actual term for it is micronized progesterone. And that is a gel tab. And I'm going to show you what the actual tab looks like that I'm taking right now a little bit later. And that's what I started on, those 2 hormones first. And then once I got stabilized on those, it was a couple months later that I started testosterone. And I take a generic just testosterone gel that I apply on my thigh. All 3 of these hormones are, well, actually, I'm not 100% sure about the testosterone. I'm like 95% sure, but I don't want to say it for sure and, and give out misinformation. But I know for 110% sure that the micronized progesterone and the estradiol patch are bioidentical, meaning they are chemically and structurally exactly the same as what our body makes already. So just remember that just because something is compounded and is made in a, like a lab, if you get like a compounded cream or a compounded, troche, which is something that goes in your mouth under your tongue, or compounded anything, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is bioidentical, and that a medication from Walgreens or CVS or anything like that is not bioidentical. These medications that I am taking are bioidentical. They are prescribed from a gynecologist that is a hormone health specialist, and they are generic medications. They are paid for by my insurance, and they are picked up at a normal run-of-the-mill Walgreens, CVS type place, right? So just want to preface that because I know there's a lot of confusion about that, and we can talk about that another time too. But I just had no idea that the actual manufacturers of the medication could make such a difference. And so when I started taking the progesterone, I got a certain brand or manufacturer. I didn't really think about it at the time, but I did know that they looked like a little round white or off-white pill. Really, a gel tab is more of a better term for it, because it is actually like gelatin here, and this is exactly what it looks like. Let me see if I can get the camera to focus on it. No, I don't think it's going to do it. Okay, I'm going to put it right here next to my face because that's where the camera is focusing on. This is exactly what it looks like. So it's like about the size of a pea. This particular manufacturer, I think, says, it says P1 on it. This, you probably can't see that. It's too little, but it has liquid inside of it. So I started with that particular manufacturer years ago when I started on HRT. Everything was great. I felt great. No problems, no issues. And then about 6 months ago, we switched all the pharmacy stuff over to CVS because the Walgreens closed. And when I went to pick up my prescription, instead of it being that little round pill, it was an oval pill. It was the same color. It was just a different shape, same strength. Everything else was the same. And I started taking it, and it just didn't, something wasn't right. But I was also going through some hormone fluctuations of my own at that time. And so I thought maybe I just attributed it to whatever was going on in my own body. Didn't really think too much of it. And so just kind of, you know how we are, right? We just keep going as women. And eventually I really made the connection as my own body started stabilizing, and I kind of went back down to those really menopausal levels of hormones. Like if I wasn't taking the HRT, I noticed that it was the progesterone in particular that just made me like not feel good. That's the only way I can describe it. Is I felt very hungover, and I know that some people report those side effects with progesterone, but I had never had those before, even on the same dose, so it didn't make sense. And I got labs done. It wasn't particularly high. There was nothing that could explain that change in the way that I felt. And I made the connection kind of when I stopped taking progesterone for a little bit. I felt better, but then I also needed it, so I needed to be back on it. And then I had some extra. I don't even remember why they were in there, but I had some extra of the round tablets in my cupboard. This is after I'd been on the oval ones for a while. And so I went ahead and tried those round ones, and sure enough, like instantly within the first night, I felt better. I didn't have that like hungover feeling the next day. I wasn't super groggy. I wasn't emotional. I wasn't, depressed. I didn't have this cloud over me. I was having, even when I was taking the oval ones, which are the ones that I do not prefer, I was having trouble waking up in the morning. I was having trouble like waking up before 10, and that's ridiculous. Like I was sleeping like 10 hours. And so it just, there was clearly something going on. So when I tested out the round tablets that I had taken for so long and had no issue with, it was very clear when everything went back to normal that that was the problem. And so next time I got that prescription and refilled it, I made sure I kind of did some digging into the actual manufacturers and made sure that I got the same manufacturer and pill that I was taking for the first 2+ years, right? When I was taking HRT. So that little round pill that I showed you, it's from a manufacturer called AuroBindo. And I'll put this all in the description just so you guys have it. It is manufactured in India. And then the other oval shaped pill that I was taking that I do not care for is from a manufacturer called Xiromed, and it's Xiro Med. Again, I'll put that in the description below so you guys don't have to worry about that. But all of this to say, I had no idea that manufacturers made that big of a difference. And so I kind of started, doing a deep dive of like, what the heck is going on? I made a post on one of the menopause kind of Facebook groups that I'm in, and that post got, I think, like 250 comments. There were so many women sharing their stories of a similar experience, mostly with progesterone, some with the estradiol patches or another medication, some with other medications completely that have nothing to do with HRT. So many women saying the same thing of like, oh yeah, I can't tolerate that for whatever reason. And so I kind of started doing a deep dive and thinking, well, like this has got to be really a thing, right? And so what I found out between kind of doing some research and talking to other women and also on that post was that there, of course, is always the brand name of the medication. And then once that patent runs out, there is the generic. And once that generic happens, they're different, it's opened up to different manufacturers to be able to make those medications. The pharmacies are obviously going to stock whatever is cheapest for them at the time. And so that could be one thing at one time, and then it could change and it could be something totally different. I do think they are required by law to notify you when the manufacturer changes, but I'm not 100% sure about that. And also, those laws could vary state to state. I know personally that the manufacturers have been changed many times when I pick up prescriptions, and I don't even know because you know how it is. You just go pick up your prescription, you walk out the store, and you get home, and you're like, wait, this isn't right. Why does this look totally different from what I took a week ago? So, I think they are supposed to tell you, but I know that for me, they definitely don't, at least not reliably. So, what happens is manufacturers, of course, are required to use the same active ingredient that is used in the actual brand name medication. But what differs is all of the fillers. They use different fillers and different ingredients for the inactive ingredients in the medication. And I think that's why it's so prevalent with the progesterone, because it's a medication that is liquid. And so they have to put some other things in there to make it work and to actually, get the body to absorb it. So with the progesterone in particular, there are different fillers. There's going to be different production practices. There's going to be different processes that those manufacturers use, and that's going to affect all of us very differently depending on, of course, the ingredients and also just how our body absorbs things, how our body, that like the amount of time it takes to absorb, how long it stays in our system, all of those things happen, right? And so again, you have to be careful because pharmacies are just going to switch them without telling you. And so I'm going to end this video just with giving like some tips on how to make this work for you, to make sure that you're getting the right manufacturer, or at least when you know when one works, to be able to stick to it, and some tips on communicating with your doctor and communicating with the pharmacist. Now, I'm just going to interrupt this really quickly to tell you that if this is valuable for you and if this is something that you can relate to, and this feels like, wow, I want to know more about this, I would so appreciate from the bottom of my heart if you would hit the like button below, if you would also subscribe to this channel. And the absolute best would be if you left a comment, because I would love to hear from you. If you've had similar experiences, tell me if you've had trouble with progesterone in particular, or any medication really. But I'm really curious about the HRT and the progesterone in particular, and to hear other women's stories and if they're going through the same thing. So if you could like and subscribe and put a comment, I would be so grateful. But of course, only if you found this valuable. So in this Facebook group where I made this comment, talking to other people, doing my research, it was very clear that some women had reactions to brands that worked fine for someone else, and some women had reactions to particular ingredients or adhesives in a estradiol patch, not in the progesterone, obviously, because there's no adhesive in that, right? But it opened my eyes to really understand that it's important to know what you're taking and from which manufacturer, and then what ingredients each manufacturer has, right? So I'm going to talk about a little bit about those ingredients in a second. But I just want you guys to have this knowledge so that you can be the best advocate for yourself, because that's the only way that we are going to make it through this path and this time in our lives. This is not easy, and I'm sure you guys have found that there's just not that many providers, there's not that many people that are knowledgeable, and so we have to educate ourselves and we have to speak up for ourselves, because it's not going to be like the times where we bring our kids to a pediatrician and they run a test and say, yep, she's got strep throat, here's some antibiotics, she's going to be better in a week. It's just not that way. There's way too many things, there's too much that we're trying to overcome with old research that has kind of tainted things in the past, with providers that are just not up on the latest research, with doctors that kind of continually not listen and gaslight people. Not all, but a lot, unfortunately. And we have to choose a path that means we've got to do some research and advocate for ourselves. So I want to talk a little bit about the specific ingredients in some of these meds so that you can understand if some of these might be the cause of what's going on with you and why you might not be reacting well to your particular progesterone. Okay, so this is what I did on that post, and I wish I would have done it earlier. It was like, I don't know, maybe 3 days after I made the post, and you know how Facebook is, it moves very quickly. But I wish I would have updated this sooner. But what I did is I went to ChatGPT, and I build AI for businesses. So I use AI and ChatGPT all day long for both personal and work. And so I've gotten very good at being able to talk with ChatGPT and get the information that I need. Now, again, I'm just reminding you, this is just for educational and entertainment purposes. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, not a medical professional in any way. Just want to preface that again. But what I did was I went to ChatGPT and I asked for the top 5 manufacturers of progesterone. I said, please provide me with all active and inactive ingredients, and note that just let me know if there are any of those ingredients that can cause potential issues with someone who's taking it, and if that's a possibility for any type of issue that might come up, right, when you're taking the medication. Now, I am going to link to this ChatGPT chat in the description of the video. So if you have a ChatGPT account, and by the way, it's free, you can just go make one for free, you can click on that link and read the entire chat that I made. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful for you. But I just want to go over a couple of things. They're more different than I thought. I was kind of surprised. One thing to know about these little gel tabs, right? Let me show you them one more time, right? One thing to know about these gel tabs of progesterone is that I think, and it will confirm here when we look, but at least the 5 top brands, they all contain peanut oil inside. Now, I don't know this for sure, and I'm sure you can ask ChatGPT too, but I'm sure it's a good carrier oil for the medication, meaning it helps the medication kind of just be in there and be readily absorbed by the body. But I also know that progesterone is absorbed really well with fat. It helps absorb that medication well. I always make sure that I take it with some sort of fat, because I have noticed a difference when I don't. So just a little tip there. But just so you know, every one of them has peanut oil in it. So if that is something that you are highly allergic to, just be aware and make sure that you take note of that, because it's going to be an issue, right? Especially if you have really severe like anaphylaxis type reactions. So the top brand name is the Prometrium. That is the brand name. And the inactive ingredients are peanut oil, gelatin, which is what the coating of the gel tab is made of, glycerin, lecithin, titanium dioxide, and obviously I'm not going to read all the ingredients for all of these. It has 3 different dyes in it: yellow number 10, red number 40, and yellow number 6. I was kind of surprised to see that. That's a lot of 3 different. I don't know why it needs to have 3 different dyes. I don't know what that one looks like. It could be, there's one that's orange in color, and so that could be the one. That would make sense, right? Red and yellow. That would make sense if that's the one that's using all the different dyes. So that's Prometrium, that's the brand name. Please know that you can request the brand name if you want to. Okay, Xiromed is the one of the oval tablet that I personally did not do well with. It doesn't mean that you won't, it just means that I didn't. But it's interesting because this one does not have, or at least ChatGPT is not 100% accurate all of the time, but it's pretty darn knowledgeable. It doesn't show any of the food coloring, the actual dye in it. And so ingredients are peanut oil, gelatin, glycerin, titanium dioxide, medium chain triglycerides, which I thought was really interesting. And I'll talk about that in a second. And then next we have the AuroBindo manufacturer. That is this one right here that I personally do really well with. That one has peanut oil, gelatin, glycerin, a few other things, and then iron oxide black, a few other ingredients that I'm not familiar with. I'll talk about those in just a second. The other ones below this, the other two manufacturers are pretty similar, but this is what ChatGPT said could cause some issues. Peanut oil, obviously, I mentioned if someone has an allergy to that, that's going to be an issue. Gelatin is made from animals, right? It's an animal collagen. So if you have a dietary restriction or you have an animal related or animal product related allergy, that's going to cause an issue. It can also lead to potential like digestive upsets. Glycerin is usually generally well tolerated, but might cause some stomach issues. Lecithin is an emulsifier. Individuals that have soy allergies might experience some issues here if there's lecithin in it. So just something to be aware of because a few of those did have it in. Titanium dioxide, not a lot of information about that. The dyes, people might be sensitive to them. They may, there's the whole hyperactivity thing that some people say happens with the dye. The other issue or the other ingredients, not really a big deal. Medium chain triglycerides is a fat, right? It's utilized to enhance the absorption of progesterone, just like I was saying. Progesterone absorbs well with fat. And it says MCTs are typically well tolerated, but may cause some tummy issues in some cases. So again, just something to be aware of because only one of the brands had that, right? So just looking at this list, it's so obvious that all of those manufacturers had pretty different inactive ingredients, right? So it's just something really important to think about. And I'll make sure to, again, to link this chat. And so now I just want to give you a few tips that I used and that I'd like to pass on to you so that you can make sure that you are getting, the best medication for your body and staying consistent if that's what you want to do with the medication and or switching to something else or a different manufacturer if you need to do that. Okay. So let's come over here. My first tip to you is to check the manufacturer and the medication before you leave the pharmacy because they will not accept like a refund or a return once you leave the store. It's not going to happen. So make sure that you just check it. Ask the pharmacist, hey, can I, check this? I visually expect it. Whatever you need to do, check the manufacturer and then use my chat or, your own resources to check out the actual ingredients inside of the medication itself. And, this can go for all medications, but I think the progesterone in particular, there's something there where there is more issues than like the average bear here. So just be aware of that. Don't assume that it is the same just because the dosage is the same, because clearly pharmacies are switching manufacturers without telling people. The other thing that you can do is you can request a specific manufacturer. You can request it from the pharmacy. That is exactly what I did with this. I called Walgreens. I said, hey, I do well with this manufacturer. I've gotten it from you guys before. They did have to order it. It came in the next day, but I requested that specific manufacturer. The best way to go about that, even better than asking the pharmacy, would be to talk to your doctor directly. If you know that a manufacturer works very well for you and you know that for a fact, have your doctor write the prescription to only dispense that manufacturer specifically, because then by law, the pharmacist has to fill it that way. Now, it could lead to issues where maybe this pharmacy doesn't have it in stock and so they have to order it, or you have to go to a different pharmacy. You've got to decide how you want to manage that. But at least you know that the doctor has it in there like, hey, you've got to do this. There's no, it's an actual law, and by law they have to follow their instructions, right? So that is something that you can do, and it's I think it's easier to have the doctor make that direction than you having to ask the pharmacy about, hey, do you have this manufacturer in stock, blah, 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 and have them do that. And the other thing that I would really encourage you to do with all of these medications and your journey with HRT, like as a whole, is just make sure that you are documenting everything thoroughly. Take pictures of the pill that works well. Write down in just a notebook, like, hey, took this round pill today. It made me feel like this. Oh, my prescription on this date got changed to the oval pill, and it made me feel like this. Take pictures of that too. When you have actual evidence that's written out and you bring that to your doctor or to a pharmacist, it's very hard to refute and argue with that evidence. And so I really think that helps our cause. It's a bummer that we have to do all that, but I also think it's helpful for our own journey and our own just looking back at things, because again, I will not remember. Oh yeah, I think that's a good one for me. I'm not going to remember. So I think it's really important to just journal and write that out so that you can keep track of everything. Okay. And lastly, if like the commercial manufacturers that you're finding at the normal, chain and just regular pharmacies don't work for you, the other option, especially if you are allergic to peanut oil, is to get something compounded from a compounded pharmacy, because they can make it specifically for you, your body, your needs. They can compound specific dosages too that might be more just unique to you and not widely available at a commercial pharmacy. So just, keep that in mind. It's usually more expensive, sometimes not, but usually, because there's a lot more that goes into it, right? And they are smaller businesses, so they've got more overhead. So just something to think about. But the compounded progesterone is an option too if you just can't make any of these other manufacturers work for you. And then I just would advocate for consistency, whether that's with the pharmacist, with your insurance, with your doctor. Just make it very clear that you need things to be consistent. You need to have things be the same. And if something's working for you, the last thing that you need is some change in medication so that you get back on this roller coaster again. So just advocate for that consistency and make sure that they understand that it's a big deal to you. And also have them note in your contact record at the pharmacy and in your doctor's office, have them note these things so that they know ahead of time what your needs are, because the more that they can keep on record too, the better it's going to work out for you, right? But I just really want you to know that you are not crazy if you have noticed a change. You are not crazy if your HRT suddenly feels different just because you went from a round pill to an oval pill. And it's frustrating to figure this out on your own, but trust me, there are answers. We have to dig a little bit. Stay informed, trust your gut, and don't be afraid to push back if something doesn't feel right. That is your right as a human being, and it is your right to feel good and to have access to the best medication that is going to make you feel best in your life. That is your absolute right. So I would love if you would let me know if this is something that you've experienced. Like, I would love to know that if you've ever noticed a change in your medications, or if you suddenly got like a different looking pill and you're like, wait, this is not, I don't feel good on this. Like, I'm not sleeping, or I'm sleeping way too long, or I'm way too emotional about this. Please drop me a comment below and let me know, because I think it's really important. I want to hear your experience, but I know other women do too. And I think the more that we can hear from one another and learn from one another, the more we can also band together and realize that, number one, we're not alone. And number two, we can do this. Like, we've got this. There are answers. We can get out there and get what we need. So I hope this has helped you. I really do. I never saw this coming with this whole round versus oval pill. This is so crazy. Like, really, do we need another thing to worry about? Apparently we do. So but I think it's important. So that's why I want to talk about it today. This is a little bit longer than I intended it to be. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was helpful to you. I would, again, love a like and a subscribe to the channel. Comment below. Let me know your experiences with medications and changing and manufacturers if you've had those issues. And then I'd also just love to hear from you about what you would like me to talk about. I would talk about anything when it comes to perimenopause and menopause, whether it's kids or medications or symptoms relief, anything that you guys want to hear about, I'm here for you. And take care. Good luck with your progesterone journey. We'll talk to you soon.